Well, welcome to Santa Pod Raceway, and the Thunderball experience welcomes us all to the 1990 season. It's been a season that we've waited for a long time, and this meeting promised so very, very much. But as we all are well aware, tragedy was just around the corner. Chris Wicks with the Mark 1 Cortina. This is a Mark 1 Cortina that you've never seen before. The big 351 Cleveland Ford power plant, disposing of the diminutive little 1600cc engine that was originally in there, and propelling that car down into the 10.5 second zone. Chris Wicks and his opponent in this first round, Kurt Hinchcliffe, they're looking to qualify as close as they can to this 9.9 second index. Kurt Hinchcliffe, of course, has raced door slammers for many, many years, now trying his hand at Supergas racing, running to that 990 index. And both those cars, that looks like a good run, but a lot of problems for Chris at the top end with the Cortina. A bit of smoke as he shuts the engine down as he finishes the quarter mile.
At the moment, he sits in the number 13 spot, so looking to Merriweather out there now.
And Ian Merriweather out there with the Banzai car. Well, this is one of the warriors from north of the border, as we say. Races in many tracks over the country, but we don't often see him down at Santa Pod with the Banzai AC Cobra. And we know he's got a best time of 10.27, looking to get a little bit closer to that. A very competitive field here assembled at Santa Pod this weekend. And here's a man that we know can run in the nines, Brian Pateman with the big block Pontiac. But this is a man that also has come up through the ranks and has run for many years in door slammer racing, and looking to take the Supergas crown to add to those many other trophies on the sideboard already at home. Good run there from Brian Pateman, showing Ian Merriweather the way down the Santa Pod track.
I think that run's going to get him into the field. Let's wait to see the times and speed.
Well, Gordon Appleton with the main ingredient, Pontiac, another man well used to winning, won in many classes, street, super street. Now trying in one of the ultimate door slammer classes, Supergas this weekend, trying to get to that 990 index. Had some problems earlier on in the day, and that precluded him putting in a really decent run. At the moment he sits in the number 14 spot, which really, for a man of Gordon's calibre and competitive edge, is really not going to sit him very well. Wants to get in that top 8 of the field, so it gives him a nice easy run possibly through the first round. Here he comes moving forward into stage. He's got those big rear slicks, good and hot from that fine smoky burnout, trying to get that picture perfect launch and really get that car down the quarter mile as close as he can to that 990 index. And Phil Druitt over there in the far lane. This is another door slammer graduate with the Psycho Escort. And at the moment, Phil Druitt really is showing Gordon Appleton that he knows what it takes to win in the Supergas class. Good run there from Phil Druitt. That is going to run him right up into the top bracket. More qualifying sessions now. Ian Merriweather with the Cobra again. And that car gets quicker every time. 10.00 at 133 miles an hour, but problems there for Brian Peach as he shuts down. And he's a man that had his fair share of problems last year. That's Phil Bainbridge with the top fuel bike, and running nitromethane, and a bike that is capable of 7-second runs. This is Raoul Kodam, a man that we know very little about. Came over to the Easter meeting and competed here for the first time in Top Fuel. Has raced all over Europe, but the first time that we'd ever seen him this side of the channel. So Phil Bainbridge waiting patiently while Raoul Kodam goes through a very protracted burnout procedure. There we see that little chirp from the bike, so it brings it up to the start line, and Raoul Kodam took his time and actually shut the bike off, and Phil Bainbridge onto a good run there, but a lot of smoke at mid-track. Looks as though he may have had some problems. Maybe we'll get some slow motion of that, and we may get a chance to see exactly what went wrong with Phil Bainbridge there at about mid-track. You can see the rider there absolutely ensconced in flame. Looks like he maybe have blown the cylinder head on that run. Well, there's our start line crew getting suited up. That must mean we have the ultimate classes coming up. We can see our crowd waiting eager with anticipation as we go into top alcohol drags to qualifying. Well, this is Dick Cruz with the Hemi Hunter, and there's a man and his team that have been putting a lot of work in over the winter, been spending hard-earned money trying to get that Rodec, which is a variant of the Chevy engine, into competitive form to race a man as Bjorn Ardeen that is capable of running right down into the 6.3, 6.4 zone. There goes the escape hatch open on Bjorn Ardeen's car. Bjorn from Sweden is an auctioneer, and he comes from Jönköping in southern Sweden, and a trade so different from drag racing as auctioneering really does make you think how the man psychs himself up to run the ex-Brand Anderson Pontiac Trans Am. So there goes the crew reversing the car back behind the start line. A good burnout from both those cars. Dick Cruz very much runs the car on a shoestring, really doesn't have the money behind him that Bjorn Ardeen and a lot of the Scandinavians have, but Dick always there and thereabouts during eliminations. There we can see the crew chief directing Bjorn Ardeen very steadily, very carefully behind that start line. It's a cold day at Thunderball, as we can see. Most people have got coats on, so keying to that traction is very important indeed this weekend. There they go. Thumbs up from both the crew chiefs, both these cars edging forward into stage. Dick Cruz is well renowned for those very quick reaction times, building the RPM as they come into stage. Fine launch there, Bjorn Ardeen really is charging up that quarter mile. Looks like problems for Dick Cruz, and Bjorn Ardeen goes through with 6.28 seconds, 221 miles an hour, his best ever time, but problems for Dick Cruz. Looks like the winter work has really caused some problems there. A lot of smoke from that car, looks like burnt pistons there at the top end. Well, there goes Bjorn Ardeen's crew, very happy indeed with that 6.28, 221 miles an hour. That would qualify him for a field anywhere in the world, and obviously their off-season has proved very beneficial indeed. Another one of our Scandinavian competitors now, Mickey Courand with the Ford Tempo body funny car, and he really has got some problems on that launch there. Bobbled away from the start line, and 12.88, 185 miles an hour, so really did kill it away from the start line. Well, we move up to the ultimate class. Would you believe 4,000 brake horsepower from these engines now? We're talking top fuel dragsters. It is a man that did battle last year at the World Finals with Tony Burenson. That is, of course, Pelle Lindelof, and a fine burnout from him. Really has got the state-of-the-art machinery at his disposal there, and I can see the Starline Marshal running up there to check the car. Maybe a problem, he's seen a small fuel leakage or maybe a little bit of oil coming out of the car, and he's very carefully looking down in front of the engine. Doesn't seem too worried, so Pelle Lindelof, he's ready to make what could possibly be a mid to low 5-second qualifying pass. Once again, we see the crew reversing him back into those rubber marks. And, they're going to be checking that car over right to the start line. It's a cold day at Santa Pod, and these engines need some warmth, some heat into the engine to really make them perform. See the crew checking it over all the way up to the start line. One of his last chores there will be to flick the switch on the race pack computer to make sure that it records all the incidences from that run. And then the crew move away, and Pelle Lindelof comes into stage, but drama there on the start line. A tremendous explosion. All our safety services immediately on the scene, but problems for Pelle there, and as we can see, the supercharger absolutely destroyed right off of the start line. Let's watch it again in slow motion. And an absolute fireball off of the start line. Thank goodness for the blower bags that they have to put round the supercharger. You can see it at the top of the screen there. Has restrained a lot of the flying debris, but as we can see, some major engine damage there from that car. Pelle Lindelof is going to be faced with a monumental repair task. The inlet manifold, the supercharger, the fuel system, absolutely destroyed there. A great shame for Pelle. He always is a very hard charger indeed in our top fuel ranks. Well, we go over now to Richard Nichols in the pits for an interview with Pelle Lindelof.
Pelle, a little bit of a start line explosion there. Is it too early to tell what happened?
Yeah, we know as far as it's a valve train problem. So we have a valve train coming up of the valve cover, and that causes a whole explosion.
It seems to have done a fairly comprehensive destruction job on the top of the engine.
Yeah, it's not only on the top of the engine, it's a block too. So we have cracks in the block, and it seems that this engine is over.
The engine's finished. About how much money have you just said goodbye to?
I haven't counted yet.
And I guess you don't want to?
No.
You have a spare engine?
No. This is our last one.
So your weekend is finished now?
Yes, suppose so, yes. See what we can do if there's any parts to, if we can buy something or so, but it not seems it seems very hard to race anymore this weekend.
Well, for someone who must be as disappointed as you are, you're looking pretty good.
Yeah, we go home to Sweden and collect some more money and come back.
Well, Pelle Lindenau remarkably philosophical over the whole problem there. And back to trackside action. John Spuffard with the showdown car. And problems for him as well. Explodes the supercharger as he leaves the start line. Well, we've got an inside story in this, and John and his crew have actually got the handle of this one now. It's the fuel pump overdrive gears have been causing him a problem, and he hopes to have got that sorted now. We watch it again in slow motion, and this is what happens when 4,000 horsepower gets out of control, absolutely destroys parts wholesale. And I'm sure she won't mind me saying, but the fast lady of drag racing in Europe, Liv Bjerstad from Norway, that quiet, unassuming young lady that really does set the track alight. At 5.37 last year, really did absolutely stun everybody and has brought some big stars over to contest for the crown this weekend. Liv Bjerstad with Rinnefield very much in attendance at all times with the Mobil 1 Pepsi-backed top fueler, the ex-Joe Amato car. And it has to be said that many times Tim Richards and Joe Amato have actually asked Rinnefield if they can buy this car back because of its successfulness over on this side of the Atlantic. And Rinnefield, in that typically stoic Scandinavian sentencing or wording, has said, nope, he won't sell. He's not interested. He knows he's onto a winner, not only with that young lady, but also with that car. Again, let me remind you, 4,000 brake horsepower at that young lady's right foot as she leaves that start line. Some adjustments there for Rinnefield, just tightening up that fuel system, maybe not quite happy with the way the engine performed on the burnout. So the car moving forward. There's Rinnefield, very much the attentive crew chief, watching over every move that Liv makes as she brings the car into stage. Just that last final check over the gauges, oil pressure, fuel pressure, everything exactly ready for possibly another low 5-second run. A little bit of tyre shake away from the line, the tyres unloaded, and they struck straight away, a lot of smoke from them, a bit of debris falling off the car, and Liv Bjerstad just coasts through. Well, here's a man that doesn't know the meaning of coasting through, Colin Fallows with the EBC-sponsored jet car. And a frightening thought this year, the man has been playing with the afterburner, trying to get even more power from that engine, more of a spectacle for you spectators. I'm sure, as we can see from those graphic pictures there, that the people in the barn don't need any more of a display. But Colin Fallows really has got a hold on this car. We can see as he lights the afterburner, just gives us that flame show. We can see the wheels locked solid and the whole thing just skating across the ground. And he'll be moving it forward into stage as soon as he's got that jet pipe up in temperature. A very appreciative audience there today. It's extremely cold. That blast of hot jet air will certainly be very welcome indeed. Moves the car forward in stage. There he goes, lights the afterburn off on the way to a 7.47 second run, 235 miles an hour for Colin Fallows. Tremendous run. Our safety crew as always right on the scene just to check, no problems. And Colin Fallows safely shut down at the far end.
302 small block in the Mark 314er, 455 high output big block.
More Supergas qualifying now, and of course we've got Brian Pateman. We've seen him already this on this film with the Pontiac, and this man on the pit lane. Of course, as all his campaign, those Mark 3 Cortinas, always with a small block in, and with a fair degree degree of success, one has to say, over the years. This is still qualifying for Monday's eliminations, and if the Monday's eliminations are going to be as closely contested as this, I think Supergas is going to be something a bit special. Well, Jeff Owens, we always call him a photo opportunity. We could almost call him the wacky racer of the Supergas class. Jeff Owens really does charge very hard in that full pop. Must have frightened Kurt Hinchcliffe somewhat there off the start line, but Jeff really does charge it and well capable of making that 9.9 second index.
So both our cars moving forward into stage. Brian Huxley there just lighting the stage light as Frank Griffin does now. Waiting for the
and as we've already said on this film, a lot of Supergas cars in attendance this weekend. So Brian Huxley's can-do car, very unusual body style, using the Japanese Mitsubishi body car, and really is going very well in that, getting to grips with the car on every run. Ray Barrow now with the Vega body car. It looks like a door slam, indeed it is, but he's running up a couple of classes, running in competition altered this weekend, ECA 30, and this car has got 10-second potential. Used to be one half of the Flying Berserko team. Archie McDermott yet to come out with his new car. Ivan Birch with the Snapdragon Model T bodied altered, sponsored by the Eastbourne Health Authority. I think also well capable of dropping down into the 10s with that small block powered Model T. A pair of good launches there. Not the wild explosive horsepower that we're used to, of course, but still a pair of good runs, and Ray Barrow it is. It goes through, takes the win like that. 10.53, 125 miles an hour. Lose out time for Ivan Birch, 10.35, 137.
Running with a fiberglass Fiat Topolino.
Well, this is Carl Wilkinson with the little Future Force Fiat Topolino. For a couple of seasons campaigned it with the Jag engine in there, but now it's changed over to small block Chevy and seems to be getting slightly quicker every meeting. And those strange front wheels, don't be fooled by that at all. That's a very potent machine indeed. Lowbuck special. Chris Wassell at the driving controls. That car has run down in the 8s on a good day, and I'm sure that Chris has been working hard and long over the winter trying to extract even more horsepower from that car. Car's leader started problems there for Chris Wassell away from the start line. Not that explosive launch we're used to. And Carl Wilkinson, well, he's not far behind, and he's got the capability of running into the 10s. Not this run though. 11.02, 121 for him. 10.39, 124 for the Lowbuck Special. Elijah Rockley hails from Dartford, and this is the Alien, resplendent in the new paint scheme for the 1990 season. Still running that 305 cubic inch Chevy engine, still running it on methanol. It's a very wild looking version of the Fiat Topolino there. Ivan's campaigned this car for many years and has got down into the low 9s with the car. A Hampshire Hog, the small block Chevy in the track Model T Ford body style. That car doesn't look to be performing as well as it can do. We've seen him run into the low 10s, but that's another low 11-second run there for him.
Chevrolet Monza of Martin Grove. Now let's have a quick look at the
Well, the American Heartbeat car of Steve Dodds, the 65 Mustang out there in the spectator lane, and Martin Crowe with the Monza it is that goes through and takes that win. He really did stay just out in front. This is handicap racing in our door slammer division, and Paul Watson with Grumpy's toy heading out, trying to hold off that Pontiac as he goes up towards the top end, looking to run, I believe, in the 1390 index this weekend. And Paul Watson looks as though he's just going to hold on to that when he does at the top end. The Pontiac charging hard, but not managing to catch Paul Watson. That Chevy Monza back round took the win in that last round, and he's against big bad Bob Brown with the big Dodge. But this car is never ever built for drag racing, weighs so very much, but he manages to get it to charge down that quarter mile, and he's run a best of 11.80, but the Monza it is that sneaks past to take the win this time. And move on to two-wheel action. Good to see that on our cameras here this year. And Suzuki Sportsman bike. and sportsman bike very much a proving ground for our higher classes. We'll see later on, I'm sure, that some of our ex-sportsman riders have now progressed to pro stock and higher. This is moving upper classes, our super street. And of course, we've got people like Brian Emery that are running down into the low nines, and don't forget those are still street legal bikes. Brian and John Boyd Messenger, who has retired from racing now, well capable of running down into the low 9-second range. Still the same burnout procedure as ever, getting that rear slick, although not the size of some of our bigger cars or bikes. Still very important indeed to get that slick good and hot, get that start line advantage, get that good hard launch. Good close racing there for our sportsman bikes, and it was the spectator lane that just took that win, just stayed inside his 10.9-second index. Back now onto four wheels. This is Brian Pateman in the Quartermaster Pontiac up against Ian Merriweather. Well, we've seen these two qualifying together, but this is for real this time. This is eliminations. They've got to get as close as they can to that 9.9-second index. Don't go any faster or else they've lost the day. Ian Merriweather at the end of his qualifying session had actually run down 10.00, so very, very close indeed. Problems for Brian Pateman there on the start line. I can see our crew wandering around, maybe have lost fire, so problems for him. Still trying to start it. Looks as though he may have managed to get it refired. Have to wait and see if he can manage to edge forward into stage to race against Ian Merriweather in this second round confrontation. Well, he's obviously got it started. Obviously running very well indeed. Looking to head off Ian Merriweather. Ian getting very close to that centre line at mid-track, but it's Brian Pateman. I think the man can count himself lucky to take that win in the second round. This is the ultimate indoor slammer racing. This is our pro modifieds, and we've seen many of our competitors, Jeff Hauser, Dave Mingay, Tim Cook, down into the 7-second zone, and this is a man that's just outside 8.02, Graham Bars with the Mustang. But Graham really has had problems all weekend with handling on this car. Really has been hooking viciously towards the centre line at every run, and I'm sure that must be playing very heavily indeed on his mind as he comes up to the line. He seems to launch very well on that dry burnout, that little hop to the start line. Everything seems to be 100% for that car. His crew chief very anxiously watching over the car as they bring it forward into stage. And, well, we can see again, the car just absolutely twitches, launches sideways, and problems there for Graham Bars, and a fine driving job from him, kept it from being a lot worse. You can see the wheels locked right over, trying to steer it away, but absolutely no chance whatsoever there, and into the barrier. Well, as we can see, a lot of destruction there on the Mustang. Graham Bars, his crew and himself had tried very hard indeed to tame the horsepower from that Boss engine. But at the end, it looks as though it may have caused him some problems, and indeed, looks as though it's suffered some severe chassis damage. So, commiserations from Graham Bars. Well, we move up a couple of classes now. Christy Johansson, Pro Comp. This man really was a rebel a few years ago, as we've already said on this film. Methanol is the fuel for Pro Comp. Kristen decided to go, he wanted to run nitro. You are allowed to run nitro if you run injectors, which is slightly different from that big supercharger sitting there on top of the engine. Even Krista had to come into line about 8 years ago, put that supercharger on the top of that big Keith Black. Really has been working very well, charging hard, and has won the championship, the European Pro Comp Championship, the last 3 or 4 years, and is a hard and fast competitor. The crew just giving that last look over the car, brushing the tyres away. Start line marshal just telling him to put the visor down as he edges that car into stage. Builds the RPM. You see the front wheel just skipping on the pavement there as he leaves the quarter mile, and that is a fine run there from Christy Johansson. Let's have a look at the times and speeds. Ladies and gentlemen, 6.26, 244 miles an hour, an absolutely storming run, and that takes away Bjorn Ardine's record that he ran earlier on. Nicky Cooper, well, we've seen think he's cured his problems. That was a very strong burnout indeed from him. And Dick Cruz, I think it is just peering through the smoke in the pit lane to take on Mickey Cougarad. Mickey, we've seen last year, can run, I think his best time was 6.44, and Dick Cruz has really got his work cut out if he's going to compete here, because his best time, 6.7, is a little way shy of that speed. Well, Dave Stone, of course, used to campaign that car many years ago, reversing him back into those rubber marks, as is Mickey Cougarad and his crew, looking to get those tyres keyed into those rubber marks they just left. He's trying to build some heat into the tyres and the clutch, of course. Very much a problem that they need to cure. And we can see that Dick Cruz very late into stage, that top light flashing frantically there, beckoning into stage, and a good launch there for Dick Cruz. Really pulled a whole shot over Mickey Cougarad. Mickey Cougarad fighting back in towards the top end, but it's Dick Cruz that takes the win. And a fine run from him. That really was very good indeed. That's very near his best ever, 6.76. Well, Liv Bjerstad, we saw earlier on with some troubles, a few parts fell off the car, went up in smoke. It's a little bit warmer out there now, the sun peering very dimly through the clouds. Let's hope that there is a little bit of heat in that track, but what a fine burnout there from Liv Bjerstad. And as we say, there's a little bit more heat in that track. She could possibly manage, maybe, could we say, a 5-second run, who can say? So she's reversing back. The car does sound very, very strong indeed. State-of-the-art technology from front to rear on that car.
The fast lady of European drag racing, 5.37, 260 miles an hour at the World Finals last year. Came out this morning.
There go the crew reversing her back, as we've already said, into those rubber marks. Even more crucial, ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you, 4,000 brake horsepower on tap there.
That they had earlier on today. No problems for her.
There goes Renfield just walking in, again making those almost characteristic adjustments to the fuel system.
For this the first time that I've seen her race here. I think the last time I came here,
you can see that just switching that last fuel pump on, this dual fuel pumps on the front of that engine, and that's both fuel pumps switched on for the run. So these crew really are not messing about, looking to possibly put the frighteners on our American friends like Darren Green and Elsa Greeny, who are here this weekend to do battle with Liv and the rest of the top fuelers. So edging the car forward into stage. I wonder if it could be a practice launch, because they've had problems earlier on. It's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen over the next 5 or 6 seconds. That is no practice launch. The header flames out there, you can see, and she shuts off early. But, ladies and gentlemen, 5.47 seconds, 202 miles an hour for Liv Bjerstad. She shut that thing down about 100 yards shy, but still recorded in a tremendous 5.47. Darrell Gwynn must have seen that, and we wonder and wait to see what this man can do. Hot off of victories at Rockingham, and of course the Gator Nationals with the 1989 Coors Extra Gold car.
There he is. We waited 4 or 5 months since he
and that very characteristic wave from him to the crowd. And I have actually seen him race in the States, and the crowd go mad when he does that. Everybody else 100% concentration on the car, but Darrell Gwynn always spares a little bit of time for the fans.
Very controlled burnout.
And his father Jerry just reversing the car back and looking over that car, moves up to Darrell. Now we're going to see a very characteristic thing that always happens before every run. Darrell's quite happy with the car, obviously, and that little handshake from Jerry. Darrell, you're all on your own. Moving the car forward into stage. He's seen that 5.47 second run. What can he do now? Can he answer Liv Bjerstad? He moves the car forward into stage. Darrell Gwynn, Mr. 4 seconds, edges that car forward. Puts his visor down, collects his thoughts, lights that last staging beam, waits for the green light. There it goes, a little bit of tyre shake. Really a fearsome tyre shake there, and the car charging up the corner. But problems there for Darrell Gwynn as he goes across the finish line. The car absolutely disintegrated. Major problems for Darrell Gwynn. An absolutely disastrous events there. And we can see the engine still spiralling down the track. And our fire service is already on the scene, and we can see Darrell moving in the cockpit. We can see a little bit of flame from the fuel tank. Liv Bjerstad and the crew just looking over the barrier there to see what they can do. Unfortunately, there is nothing whatsoever righting the car, and our safety services already on the scene. Well, an horrific accident there for Darrell Gwynn, one which he was very lucky indeed to survive, and at this time he is in intensive care in Stoke Mandeville Hospital.
That was a very serious accident, it looked from here, but we know the standards of safety that these cars are built to. Today you saw some very, very good action indeed. Right down on the index, a lot of action.
Well, we move on with Supergas action. And Brian Pateman in the quartermaster, looking to cement his place in the next round. And he really is charging over the Ford Pop. The Ford Pop fighting back at him towards the top end, but Brian Pateman looks as though he's just going to hold on, and he's braking very hard there. He's very close indeed to the index. Stayed in safe and goes through to the next round. So Brian Pateman quite happy with that one. Phil Druitt with a Psycho car. Well, anybody who's been door slammer racing over the last few years cannot fail to recall the bright green Morris Minor pickup that he used to run. He's put this car together, but over the course of the weekend really has proved himself very well in this car indeed. Brian Huxley over there on the far lane with the Can-Do Mitsubishi. And Phil Druitt, I think, is going to be a hard man to beat this weekend, and Brian Huxley's doing his best here, but Phil Druitt just edging out at that top end. I think we'll just find that he took that one at the top end, and Brian Huxley really was charging hard after it. We watch it again in slow motion. And I have to say that looking at it again, that is a dead heat. If we look at those tyres, we can see that they're very, very close indeed, but it was Phil Druitt that just took that win. Jeff Owens, our man that we call our photo opportunity. Again, him hopping and skipping up the quarter mile. The car is all over the place. But he goes through, takes that win line. Good run there for Jeff Owen. 10.41, 124 miles an hour. Ian Merriweather and Kurt Hinchcliffe in the next pairing in Supergas. And Ian Merriweather, well, he was a newcomer to the surface this weekend, the racing tarmac. He really is trying very hard, but Kurt Hinchcliffe, right at the death there, just squeaks past him. A fine run from him, and he goes through to the next round. Well, this man is our 1989 street car champion in the pit lane. Steve Dunn, John Evans at the driving controls this weekend, charging hard against Bob Brown. A very close run thing indeed, and it's Bob Brown that just takes that win, 12.15 to a losing 12.19. Bob Brown really did play that handicap very well indeed, and just missed breaking out of the 1190 bracket. Good run from him. George Chirella in Super Street this weekend in the pit lane, and he's running against the Frenzy car. Well, this is a car we haven't seen out for many years. And George Chirella, well, he's really got to grips with an Opel, and he goes through, takes the win, goes through to the next round when he will meet the winner of our next pairing. So George Chirella, good run, and just beating the Frenzy car. Well, this is Roger Hatherish in street car with the Hot Lemon Minor, Rover V8 power, good smoky burnout from him, and he's going to be running against Paul Martinek. Well, Paul Martinek, of course, we've seen for many years, and he's run very well indeed in that Mustang, but unfortunately, of course, Roger Hatherish really has got a nice, light, small, compact car, and he's going to, Roger Hatherish really is going to rate a favourite's edge over Paul Martinek this weekend. So moving forward into stage, this is the first of a best of three in the 1390 index. A close run thing here. Paul Martinek was just eking out the lead there, and he goes through 13.90 right on the index, and Roger Hatherish just a little way behind, 14.39 losing out. Paul Watson, Grumpy's toy in the spectator lane. Marino Molinari in the Dodge Demon. And he's running in our 1290 index. And Paul Watson looks as though he's just going to edge Marino Molinari out at the top end. He does indeed. That is a close run thing indeed. And Paul Watson goes through to meet the winner of the Steve Dodd-Paul Warrow confrontation. In the meantime, we move back onto sportsman bike. As I've already said, this is very much a proving ground for our higher classes pro stock funny bike. We've seen a lot of our street bikes progress into those classes. Mark Flavel, Supergas. Well, Supergas this weekend really has been very highly contested indeed. And he's running against Gordon Appleton in the main ingredient car. Mark Flavel, of course, another one of our northern raiders, as we call them. They race in the northern tracks in the country. Not often we see them down here, but they always give our southern boys a fright. And Gordon Appleton not taking Mark Flavel lightly at all in this run. Charging hard, looking to run as close as he can to that 9.9 second index. 10.25, 125 miles an hour for him. That takes the win, goes through to the next round. Well, a real David and Goliath battle here. Brian Pateman with the quartermaster against Phil Druitt. Well, Phil Druitt with the Psycho Escort. We've said he's already come to grips with that car, and he really is. Look at him giving that charge to Brian Pateman, and Brian Pateman goes through but runs too fast. Brian Pateman breaks out. So Phil Druitt it is that goes through to the next round, where he will meet Gordon Appleton. So an upset there. Brian Pateman too quick, breaks out of the 9.9 second index, and Phil Druitt it is that just keeps inside 9.91, and he takes the win. Well, Kurt Hinchcliffe and Jeff Owen. Jeff Owen again fighting that 4-pop all the way up the quarter mile. Kurt Hinchcliffe, a good flat launch from him. Jeff Owen really is going to have to play catch up here. And Kurt Hinchcliffe goes through, but he also breaks out. And Jeff Owen takes the win. A very exciting class, as we said, Supergas. This is Brian Thomas and Mick White, D53 in the old timer. And Brian Thomas it is that takes the win. And he goes through 9.29, 135 miles an hour. Good run from him. He goes through to the next round. This is Barry Giles and Tony Morris. Well, Tony Morris, of course, originally hails from Birmingham, but now living in Germany. Comes over here all too infrequently. And it's Tony Morris that takes the win on that round, CA48. And he beats Barry Giles, goes through to the next round. We move on now with Procom action. Bjorn Ardeen, well, we've already seen him put in that 6.28 earlier on the film. What can he do now? And he's running against Dick Cruz. We saw Dick Cruz upset Mickey Cougaran with that fine hole shot. And a wild burnout there from Dick Cruz, really trying to get that Rodeck engine working overtime. You can see Dave Stone in the background there, just trotting out to direct him back into those rubber marks. Bjorn Ardeen with the safety hatch open, just letting that acrid tyre smoke drift out, give him as much clear vision as possible on the quarter mile. What a good shot there of Dick Cruz, a picture of concentration. Knows that Bjorn Ardeen has run 6.2. He made up 2/10 last time against Mickey Cougaran, 4/10. It really is a very tall order for the Hemi Hunter team indeed. So he's going to have to try hard. He's going to have to try every trick in the book. Really going to have to go for a whole shot if he's going to beat Bjorn Ardeen. Building that RPM, those engines really do scream as they come into stage. He had to launch quick, and he's pulled a red light. That's lucked him out of the competition. But a storming run from Bjorn Ardeen, 6.27, 226 miles an hour. So Dick Cruz just left that a little bit too soon. This is Lee Verlander. An unusual body style here, the Saab funny car body. Lee Verlander, of course, has been over in the States and run many times over there, and that has parlayed into some very good performances back over in Europe. A feared competitor over on our European circuit. Christer Johansson, well, we've already seen him run into the low sixes. He ran 6.29 earlier on. Wonder what he can do this time. decorating the start line with smoke. Don't forget, these don't run nitro, just running methanol. Pro Comp class. So if we played the favourites edge here, I suppose we really wouldn't have to favour Krista Johansson after that fine qualifying pass, looking for a place in the next round. C45 Leafa Lander. His crew just reaching in, checking the fuel system, just making sure everything all in order, ready for the run. There they come forward into stage. You can hear those engines absolutely wail as they come into stage. There go the staging beams, waiting for the green light. Problems there for Leafa Lander away from the start line. Didn't look as though he actually staged correctly. And Krista Johansson absolutely flies through. 6.37, 245 miles an hour. And here's another one of our foreign competitors. This is Al Segrini in the 88 car. And he loses a blower belt away from the start line and trickles through, just coasts through. Al Segrini really hasn't had any luck in this car. 11.38, 66 miles an hour. So a troubled weekend for our top fuelers. This is the second in the best of three between Roger Hatherish and Paul Martinek in the 1390 class. Don't forget, Paul Martinek won that first round. Roger Hatherish has already got a good start on him there. And Paul Martinek, problems for him, and skates into the barrier. Looks as though it might be raining a little bit. We can see a few umbrellas up, and I think there's that little bit of moisture on the track may have caused Paul Martinek a problem. He doesn't look a happy man as he exits the car. And he doesn't look at all happy. One has to wonder why they were allowed to run if it was raining, but Roger Hatherish goes back. That's one run each, and from looking at that Mustang, I really don't think that that car is going to make it back for the third of the best of three. This is Paul Watson with Grumpy's Toy. And he's running against that little frenzy again. And Steve Dodds, it is that takes the win. So Steve Dodds in the American Heartbeat car takes that win. And we got the Monza against Bob Brown. Bob Brown really has worked wonders with this car over the years. Wonders what he can do, and he just puts on those brake lights very early, stays out in front and takes the win. Doesn't break out, but a very close run thing indeed. The name of the game is not to go quicker than your dialed in index. 11.90 is the index for that class. And it's Phil Druitt against Gordon Appleton. And Phil Druitt really is coming on in leaps and bounds in Supergas. And Phil Druitt it is that takes the win. And he moves through into the final against either Richie Lee or Jeff Owen. So that'll be an interesting one coming up very shortly. George Chirella in the pit lane, and he's running against Les Szabo, and it's Les Szabo that takes the win. So Les Szabo, I do believe, wins that class. Ray Barrow against Mo Blackburn in the Jigsaw car. Ray Barrow, as we've already seen, running well into the 10s. Mo Blackburn, though, we've seen that car run into the low 10s as well, and he goes through, takes the win. That small block Ford powers him through to a very convincing win. 10.53, 125 miles an hour. Carl Wilkinson, CA19. This is a man that has been looking to get into the 10s for quite some time. I really do feel he's going to do it very shortly indeed. He's running against Ivan Birch. Ivan Birch is charging back at him, but Wilkinson staying out in front, and he records 10.90, 121 miles an hour for him. So finally for Carl Wilkinson and the Future Force team into the 10s. Well done to them. Super Street action, Brian Wiggy Emery, a man that's capable of running it down into the low 9s. Looks as though he's got problems this weekend, losing out, and his normal consistency and dominance of that class ended this weekend. SS28 and he's slated to be running against SS9. That's Mike Taylor, and a little bog away from the start line. That could cause him dear already. A couple of bike lengths lead in the favour of SS9, and he goes through, takes the win. 10.41, 138 miles an hour. Lose out time for SS28. 10.44, 137. Harlan Thompson with the Budweiser funny car. The man that I'm sure after the problems with Darrell Gwynn must have had a very fraught and worrisome weekend. And all credit to him, I must say, for coming out and trying to put in a pass on this car to entertain the rather large crowd we had here at Santa Pod, considering the weather this weekend. Crew Chief Knut Sunderquist just checking over the car from the back as it comes up into stage. And just clicking the car off early. Good checkout pass there for him, 9.20, 75 miles an hour. Well, Rune Fjeld has been over in the States over the course of the winter and added to his mobile Pepsi One stable. We've seen Liv Bierstadt with the ex-Joe Amato car. This is the 1989 Tom Hoover Showtime car. Rune Fjeld, we haven't seen driving very much just lately. Seems to have devoted much of his time to coaching Liv Bierstadt into handling 4,000 horsepower. Good to see him back behind the controls again with that new car. Qualified number 14th in Gainesville when a couple of rounds got knocked out in the quarterfinals. So this car we know can perform, can go well. Be interesting to see. Tom Hoover, when it was in his hands, has run the car down into the 5.3, 5.4 zone. It'll be interesting to see what Rune Fjeld can do on a very cold Santa Pod track. Reversing the car back after that burnout. Car does sound very, very strong indeed. Looks good in the colours of the Mobil Pepsi sponsors. And one of the crew just going around shutting the escape hatch. Rune Fjeld going to be edged forward into stage. His crew just checking the car over all the way up into the staging beams. Really didn't sound very strong away from the start line. Looks as though maybe a few of the clutch sections locked up all at once, but still records 8.95, 132 miles an hour. I feel sure there is a lot more potential in that car yet. And Al Segrini with the Budweiser car. We saw Darrell Gwynn campaign this car last year, but I really feel that a shadow has been cast over the weekend's Top Fuel action after that horrific crash. And Al Segrini taking it very steady through the quarter mile, records 7.76, 87 miles an hour. Right, Martin Brown running the competition car this weekend, and he should be running against Brian Thomas. Indeed, there is Brian Thomas with the Paranoia car, our reigning competition car champion, with that 3.8 Jag power plant, which really has been pushed to unheard of levels of performance. Martin Brown has imported this car over from the States, and a very pretty little car indeed, and looking for a place in the final. And both our cars edging forward into stage. Going to see a slight start in the favour of Martin Brown. There goes the handicap. Brian Thomas it is that's got to do the chasing, and already alongside Martin Brown. Really is charging very well indeed. Brian Thomas, a fine storming run from him, and one of the best runs we've seen from him in a long time. 9.25, 142 miles an hour to take the win and move into the final. Jeff Hauser with the Pro Modified car. Haven't seen him before on film this weekend. Mr. 7 seconds, and showing Dave Mingay a clean pair of heels on the way home. We called him Mr. 7. He keeps those habits. 7.94, 178 miles an hour to take the win. We move now on into Super Gas and the final. And Phil Druitt, the man that ran Door Slam, has come all the way through the field. His first ever event in Super Gas, and it looks as though he's going to take the win. And he does, 10.02 to edge out a losing but gallant Jeff Owen. This is the final of Super Street. Les Szabo against Pete White. Les Szabo with a 69 Barracuda. Good launch there. Pete White going to have to work very hard in the up-in-smoke Pontiac to overcome that launch. He doesn't manage it, so Les Szabo it is that takes the win. 11.01, 119 miles an hour. Lose out for Pete White, 11.11, 123. Paul Mitchell with the GS Buick over on the spectator lane. Bob Brown with the bad as ever Dodge over on the pit lane. And this is a very close run thing. Very little to choose between them at the top end. It's Paul Mitchell that just edges him out. 12.11, 110 to a lose-out time of 12.14. Mo Blackburn again coming round with the jigsaw rail. He's running against Carl Wilkinson. Good launch there from Carl Wilkinson. I'm sure that 10-second run of his earlier on must have bolstered his confidence no end. And Mo Blackburn charging hard towards the top end and just takes that win light. 10.41 for Mo Blackburn, 137. Lose out time for Carl Wilkinson, 11.14. A couple of our new cars in one of our lower classes. This is the Blue Movie car. Had some problems earlier on in the weekend and continues to have those problems. And a tremendous accident, absolutely wipes out the front end of the car. So problems for him. And the little Corvette Alta goes through and takes the win light. It's going to be a difficult one to call because I do believe he left too soon and pulled the red light, but the Blue Movie 5-window coupe in all sorts of problems there on the pit lane. This really has been a weekend of disasters and problems for classes, drivers in many classes really. Christy Johansson with the Pro Comp car, a solo in the final, 6.26, 244 miles an hour. Really does stamp his mark of authority on Pro Comp this year. Well, Mickey Cougarad in the Ford Tempo, the ex-Lou Gasparelli Pro Comp from the States, putting in a solo run. We've seen him have many problems this weekend. Looks as though he's finally cured them. The Brad Anderson parts finally working, 6.40, 208 miles an hour. Our final of Super Comp, Brian Thomas meets Tony Morris. Germany meets England. And Brian Thomas really is on a charging run. I don't think he's going to be top there. 9.31 to take the win, 142 miles an hour. Lose that time for Tony Morris, 9.62, 138. Well, this is a man that we saw out earlier with that tremendous blower explosion on the start line. I'm sure you must say a very big thank you to everybody that's rallied round, got him some parts together, and has really done well to get the car. I know the crew worked long into the night to rebuild that shattered race car. So Pelle Lindelow reversing back after a good burnout. The engine does sound strong. The work that they put in really has paid dividends if the sound of an engine is anything to go by. The crew giving him the thumbs up. Pelle Lindelow all on his own, just a quarter mile of asphalt in front of him. The car forward in stage. That does look like a good launch. Clouds of smoke, and oh, that was a good run from Pelle Lindelow. 5.68 seconds, 193.7 miles an hour. Well, a weekend of drama and disaster was capped with this accident in the Fire Up Road, which stopped Harlan Thompson running again over the weekend. Our thoughts at this time must go out to Darrell Gwynn, and we wish him a speedy and full recovery. Join us again when we go drag racing at Santa Pod.
Whoa, the